I'd like us to create a class called employee so that we see how to implement the concepts, the concept of classes. Employee is a class, and we know classes help us to bring real world objects into a program so that we can write code around that. I'd like for us to create a class called employee. We already have the main class here, which is called a class main. So far, we've been writing code just within this class, but we're saying for us to be able to bring real world objects into our program, then we cannot keep using integer, double, and all that. We need to be able to define our own data types. And one way of defining our own data types is creating a class that captures everything that is to do with that object that we want to bring into our program. So right here, I'll select the package and I go ahead and create a Java class and call it employee. In this class, we can have constructors. First, we can have properties about this employee. So what is it that is a property about an employee? That is what we are calling properties or just fields. So an employee would have a name. An employee would have employee ID or employee number. Okay, they could have a department, and we can even add the salary here. Salary. But it's also important to put in okay, that's fine. I'm using Control Alt and L to format the code. So these are the properties. Now we need methods to be able to modify these properties. So that could be reading, manipulating, or displaying, or initializing. We need to create methods within the class that are able to do that. And that's just what we call behavior, because we say the class consists of behavior and properties. So these methods, and we can also use a constructor to initialize these values. We have said a constructor is a method which has the same name as the class. And you remember the three properties. A constructor does not have a return type. A constructor does not have a return type, number one. What else did we say about a constructor has the same name as the class? So let's create a constructor here, employee. And actually, you don't need to keep typing. You can right click and then go to generate and then select constructor. And we want to select all of this so that when the constructor comes up, it's able to take care of this, all the properties. We also said that we use the keyword this to differentiate this name, which is this one here, with the one that has just been declared here, so that you don't get to a place and you don't know what variable to use. Then you can use the same, but when you are referring to the one that is declared within this class, then the keyword this becomes important. So anytime we now call the constructor when we are creating the object, then we are able to initialize this. I just go ahead and create a method to display this void. It will return nothing because it will display the data from here. So call it display data. Okay, and I will just use this to display all of this data. So system.out.println and name I will use plus to concatenate strings. So the string name is joined with the variable name. Okay, I'll repeat that for all the statements because I just want to output this. Name, employee number, this is employee number. Then the next one is department. This is department. This is this variable here, which is initialized here. You know, the next one is salary. Okay, now we have our own class which represents an employee. It's like we've come up with our own data type. So if we go to main here, inside the main class, we can go into the main function, and using that data type that we have just declared or created called employee, we now declare a specific employee. Let me call this employee employee 1. Remember, it's the same thing. If this was an integer, we would have said int, then gone ahead and declared an integer like number. So what is int here? It is the type of this number, or it is the data type of this number. The same thing. Employee 1 is of type employee, and therefore we can use that as our data type. And you can now imagine we can bring so many other real-world objects into our program: a phone, a student, a computer, as long as we are able to define the properties and the methods, rather the properties and the behavior. So is equals to new. We use keyword new to always initialize employee. But now, when we were defining this, we provided a constructor here, which has the name, the employee number, and the department and salary. And therefore, that means as we create an object, we need to provide all of that. So the first thing is name, James Kamau, comma, look at the suggestion, employee name, number. So A101, some number, comma. The next one is the department, logistics. So I hope you can now see how we are able to create actual real-world objects into our program. So that's double salary, 47,000. And there we go. We have created one employee. We don't need this. We have created one employee. Supposing we need to display the data about this employee, then what we are supposed to do is call this method employee dot get or display data. This method will give all the data about this employee as defined here, So let's run this program and see what happens. That's running. So it's about to print that. Employee is James, employee number. You can see all the inputs that we created. And there's a benefit of doing this because it means if I need to create another employee, all I need to do is duplicate this statement here. Duplicate this statement here. Let me do that. Create a second employee. Call this employee 2. And you can provide different names. Jen. what is this name I'm looking for? James K, that would still be work. This could be 33. And this could be marketing. And the salary could be different, just some random number. And there you go. So this statement will display details for employee 1. We can duplicate it to create to display the details for employee 2. And see, when we run this, we're able to get this data. Displayed. You can see that we have employee 1 details displayed, then we go to employee 2. This means we can keep creating 1, 2 all the way to 100. This is a class. We are defining our own data types. Supposing we had 1,000 employees, would they need to write 1,000 statements? Probably not. That would be very, very cumbersome. So we must look for a better way to simplify this so that for every object, then we don't need to do this. Right. First of all, we need to create a place where we can store these employees, all of them. For each employee, we can store them in a simple variable like this. But when they are many, then we need to store them somewhere. And we will use array list. Array list. We need to specify what type of data will be kept in this array list. For now, we will keep data for employee. Here, we would have written integer double if it was that type of data, but now the type of data we want is employee. So we call it my employees because there are many, you know, my employees. Let's initialize this. New array list and just leave it as that. So that means anytime we create an employee, we can store them in this, we can add them in my employees because that is supposed to hold a collection of that, you know, it's like an array really. So we can be pushing each employee we create in that list, Now, allow me to receive the details, not in this manner, but interactively. So I'll go here and change this so that I will now not receive the data through a constructor, but I will have a method that receives this data one by one. So I'll call another method here, void get employee data. That's okay, data. We want to receive it interactively. So system dot out dot println enter name. Okay, so let's declare as the object of the scanner class anywhere really. Can do that here. Scanner inputs is equals to new scanner system dot in. So right here we can receive name inputs dot. So we said next line can receive a name with space, you know, it's because it's like a line. So we are looking for next line. If you use on the next, you will read one word. So let's store this inside name. Okay, so we now need to repeat this. I'll just copy paste this for all the other inputs, taking care of the type of input. Enter employee number. So I'll store this under employee number. I'll use next line also. Okay, the next one is department. Okay, so this is department. The next one is salary. So this is not, salary is not a line or a string, so this is double, so we should look for next double, which is here, and there we go. So we could go to main now, but remember, the constructor we have expects us to send parameters every time. So we can either delete this constructor or create another constructor that does not have parameters. I could just write public, public employee, and that's all. You can leave it empty. So what this means is we have two constructors. When we call a constructor and pass in the parameter, the computer will execute this. If we create an object or call the constructor and don't provide any arguments, then this is what will be invoked. So we can actually say the constructor is overloaded. It's overloaded. It's been given two different implementations, and we have looked at method overloading. So now I can comfortably delete this because we want to receive the input at runtime. So look at what I will do here. I can actually go ahead and delete this. Now, we will need to know the number of employees we want to receive data for. So allow me to tell the user, enter the number of employees. Enter the number of employees. Okay, so let's receive that number and store it somewhere. So we will need scanner input. Any object can be used here. New scanner. System dot in. Okay, so we also need another variable. I want to store the number of employees.